Hey everyone, Jamari here with another video. Thank you to everyone who's been supporting my brand new channel, giving it some love. Please continue to support by subscribing to the channel, clicking the bell for notifications, and please like and comment on the video. Okay, so Endgame was amazing. 11 years, 22 movies leading up to this, and it does not disappoint not one bit. Now, I will have spoilers to come ahead, but I'll start the video with a small non-spoiler review. Firstly, let me start by saying the enjoyment you, the viewer, get out of Endgame is completely reliant on the fandom for the MCU and overall MCU knowledge. Now, I completely understand the average moviegoer thinking that Infinity War or even Civil War is a better movie than Endgame. Now, that's just personal opinion for certain people. Me personally, someone who's been so invested in the MCU for so long now, I think this movie was perfect. The most perfect movie that the MCU could create. It definitely isn't an action movie. I think it's just better for the viewer to know that going into the movie because to me it's more of a suspenseful drama. And now that works for what this movie accomplishes, but it might not be what everyone's looking forward to for a superhero movie, which is completely understandable. But I do love how they do a great job at adding depth to the original Avengers and the franchises behind the original Avengers. They definitely have a finality to it that is just beautiful if you look at it as a whole. Of course, with saying that, let me say, there's definitely fight scenes in the movie. Of course, there's not going to be an Avengers movie without fight scenes. There's especially one at the end that had me at the edge of my seat and my jaw on the ground the entire time. But that's not what this movie's about. It's really about the emotions, the characters, the finality of the journey that they've all been on. The Russo brothers show us again that they're Hollywood's best liars that everyone loves because although they said the trailer from the first 15 minutes of the movie, that was a straight up lie. The trailer is thoroughly throughout the entire movie, and it's not spoiler to say that it's throughout because even watching the trailers again after the movie, I could still see where I wouldn't be able to tell anything, except for one part that I'll get to later on in the spoiler part, but I'll save that for later. I won't get into that yet. And if your problem with the MCU is stakes, then don't worry about that with this movie. There's definitely stakes, and there's definitely consequences to actions in this movie. And I absolutely love that. Now, there are a few things I'll have to get to later on in the video about what happens and the future of the MCU. But again, I don't want to get into any of that right now for people who might not have seen the movie. Why haven't you seen the movie yet? But I'll save that for everyone who's sane and got their ticket early and was able to see the movie like myself. It's just so truly amazing that so long ago this all started with Iron Man, the Hulk, Captain America, Thor, Hawkeye, and Black Widow. And now it's just grown into this phenomenon that couldn't have been predicted by anyone, but something that we're all in love with right now. And I'm just so excited to be able to talk about this and to be able to view these movies. But everyone, that's it for my non-spoiler portion of this video. Please, if you have not seen the movie, please do not continue on this video. Everything from here on out will be completely spoilerific. So, you still here? Let's start. So, the movie actually opens with Hawkeye and his family on the farm, and I really love this because this is the segue from Infinity War to Endgame. You see him there with his family, they show a little family moment, happiness, and then everyone's just dusted, all gone from his life. And it really is heartbreaking. You really see the devastation in his face, and it's just so well put together and amazing. I really loved this opening scene to the movie. The last opening scene we had in Infinity War with the Asgardian fleet ship was amazing. But for this movie, I think a more emotional setting actually really fits this movie well. But after this, we actually cut to Nebula and Iron Man on the ship, which we actually got a lot of in the trailers. A lot of this was shown, pretty much all of what he said to Pepper Potts that was important was shown in the trailers. But I really love this because it's really believable. It actually opens with them playing paper football or whatever you'd call it. And it's very beautiful. You're still seeing that he still has this sense of himself, even though he's on the brink of death. And of course, we all know because of the trailers, they're low on food and oxygen. So once he finishes that recording, he kind of just closes his eyes. And Nebula actually has to pick him up and put him in a chair because he can't even hold himself anymore. And when you think it's all lost, Captain Marvel appears out of nowhere. And I'm assuming she was just protecting the galaxy, trying to see what's been going on. So she come across this ship. And then she brings them back to Avengers HQ. So yes, to whoever predicted it, that was actually Captain Marvel that we saw all the Avengers running out to when they were at Avengers HQ running out on the field. And a lot of people thought somebody was removed from this image. It's actually Pepper Potts who's on the far right of this image, who you see a couple seconds later, a couple frames later. But her and Tony are reunited. They have their moment together. You also have Nebula and Rocket reunited. But Iron Man kind of gets into it with Captain America and tells him, like, you weren't there. We needed to put this protection around the world, and you were against me, and you weren't there when everything went to hell. I fought Thanos without you. And I mean, Captain America fought Thanos too. But anyways. And after ranting for a while, he passes out because he just doesn't have any more energy. Then Captain Marvel wants to go after Thanos, and they let her know that he's used the stones 2 days ago. And after talking for a while, they say we can't beat him. I'm pretty sure you guys have all seen this clip. They do decide to go and fight him again, which we were all expecting. This was pretty much found out when Steve said, let's go get this son of a bitch. Captain Marvel goes and she sees that he's there by himself with no protection. They all ransack the place. They take him over. They say, what happened to the stones? And he says he's destroyed them. And then after that, Thor just cuts his head off. Yes, he chops his freaking head off, and I loved every second of it. But from that moment, Thor walks out, he flies away, and this is actually the end of this moment of Infinity War. We then get a 5-year time jump. And at this point, everyone's had to find ways to move on. Steve Rogers is actually working on a group of people trying to build people through. There's actually a cameo from Joe Russo in this scene where he's talking about things. They're all trying to find ways to move on because Cap says we got to move on. I guess you would say Black Widow would be the acting director of S.H.I.E.L.D. She's got Rocket, Okoye, War Machine, and even Captain Marvel answering to her on the holographic communicators that they had in Civil War. But there's just so much going on in this 5-year time jump. Everybody's trying to move on with everything that's happened and just come to grasp with what's happened. So for the most part, everyone's really moving on in their own kind of way. But then we get Scott Lang coming back to the current timeline. And it's funny because a rat is actually what lets him out of the van because the rat clicks a couple buttons, comic book logic. But he comes out and he finds out everything that's going on. For him, he's only been in there for 5 hours. But when he comes back out, he's 5 years into the future with half the population gone. So he goes to this memorial where everyone who's been snapped away is just hung up and posted up there, and he's looking for his daughter's name. And he actually sees his own name, but his daughter's not up there. So he goes to find Cassie. He finds Cassie at their old home, and then she sends him to Avengers HQ, or he decides to go to Avengers HQ. But before we can go back to HQ, we got to play some superhero roundup, so everyone's doing their best to play. We got Black Widow going to get Hawkeye, who's now Ronin. He's in Tokyo destroying a bunch of bad guys, just killing every criminal he can come across, saying, I am your Thanos. But she convinces him to come back to HQ because we got a movie to get through, so we got to get everybody moving along. We can't have everyone standing off for 16 hours and have a 17-hour movie. Actually, that doesn't sound too bad. But we then jump to them trying to get Iron Man, and he's actually raising a family with Pepper Potts and their daughter Morgan. So when they come to get him, he's pretty reluctant. He tells them straight up, I don't want to do this. I don't want to risk what I have. I don't want to risk my family. I don't want to lose everything to Thanos again. And he tells them no. He tells them to kick it to the curb. He wishes it was on other terms that they came here, but they need to go. They could stay for dinner if they don't want to talk about it, but of course no one stays. And then of course he figures out time travel after telling them it's impossible by the end of the night, in Tony Stark fashion. But with Tony Stark turning them down, they got to turn to another genius. And this is when we actually catch up with Bruce Banner and the Hulk, who have merged to become Professor Hulk at this point. And he tells them that this isn't really his expertise and he doesn't really know what he's doing with time travel. But of course, because we got to get the whole gang back together, he agrees to go with them. And then they all end up back at Avengers HQ working on a way to get the suits working. Then we got Rocket going to New Asgard to get Thor. And Valkyrie tells him Thor won't see anybody. He only comes down to get beer. And boy, is this guy drinking a whole lot of beer. This dude is fat, thick, chubby. That man is everything on the list. He has gotten big. But, of course, because movie, Rocket convinces Thor to come back to Avengers HQ. We then get this beautiful scene where Potts and Tony are talking, and she tells him, if you don't go through with this mission, yes, you'd be able to move on with your life and raise this family, but would you be able to rest if you didn't do this? And this scene is just so beautifully well put together, and it has a beautiful callback later on. So I really love this scene where Tony Stark does decide to go back, shows them the right way to time travel, and brings back Cap's old shield. This dude is just a true live G in this movie from start to finish. And I mean that. But then we get everyone back at Avengers HQ. They're going over ways to find out how to get all of the stones from the past. And they end up splitting into teams. And for sakes of keeping this video under 15 minutes, I'm not going to break down everything that happened. But if you want another video on some breakdowns on what happened on those missions and everyone going to retrieve the stones, comment down below and let me know. But mainly, they went through all these different time periods and they ended up getting all of the stones. But not without Thanos finding out what happened. Thanos was able to see Nebula's memories because since they went back in time, Nebula shared a consciousness with her other self. And when they all came back, Nebula actually did the switcheroo and switched places with the newer Nebula. So it was the evil Nebula who came back to present day. But this actually leads to the climax of the movie. And when all the Avengers come back and get the stones together, they make an Infinity Gauntlet. And while they're deciding who needs to wear the gauntlet, it's none other than Professor Hulk. And he puts on the gauntlet and snaps his finger, leaving the whole side of his body just almost completely disintegrated. It's just completely charcoaled and messed up and everything. But then we get Thanos coming back, and we get his ship coming through the quantum realm and just destroying the whole thing and breaking up over the roof, and then he destroys the whole HQ. And this is what segues into the big battle scene. There's an amazing part with Captain America, Iron Man, and Thor approaching Thanos, fighting him 3-on-1. Then after that, we see Thanos' whole army lined up ready to take over the Earth. And then we see a spiral. But not just a spiral, a wizard spiral behind Captain America. And behind him comes Black Panther. And then all the other Avengers that were snapped away, and the wizards, and the Dormalaji, and all the Wakandans, and everyone's there. And at this moment, they take a stand against Thanos. And this is what goes into the huge battle. There was so much going on in this battle, I won't get into it. But just know Captain America actually wields Mjolnir and his shield at the same time. We got Black Panther and Spider-Man running with the gauntlet. But it's actually Iron Man who wields the gauntlet and gets rid of Thanos and his entire army by a snap of his fingers. Then we get Old Man Cap. We get a bunch of closure on everything that's been happening. I'm not going to break down the ending in this video because I might do a separate video just specifically on the ending of this movie. But it was just such a great ending to this entire saga. Thank you everyone for watching. Please subscribe to my channel, click the bell for notifications, and comment on the video of what you'd like to see next. Thank you everyone. Until next time.